Hi gang, Rob here. Another one of these odd little driving home from work videos, at least the beginning of it will be. You know, it occurred to me sometime today that I've been in an odd mood the last few days. I've been, seeing things a little differently and just haven't been quite myself. And then at some point today, as I pulled my cold steel Recon 1 out of my pocket during some downtime and started to fondle it a little bit and open it and close it, it occurred to me, what's different? See, for the last few days, well, my ZT0550 has been shipped off to its new owner, and my Benchmade 940 is still in Oregon for service. And, well, I carried my 710 quite a bit over the last couple weeks. It occurred to me, what was different as I was fondling my Recon 1? The difference is I've been in a cold steel state of mind. It seems like the last few days alternating in my pocket have been my American Lawman and my Recon 1, and I just did that 28-minute review on the Recon 1, and I was really loving the cold steel. And it's odd, after a few days in my pocket, even my attitude about Lynn Thompson seemed to change. Here, let me show you what I mean. Yeah, that's how I usually see Lynn. walking around at Blade Show or SHOT Show, and sort of has that attitude of superiority. And let's face it, they make some cool knives, but I don't think I'm unlike most of you who sort of see Lynn as a used car salesman, marketing genius who makes knives. And well, but let me kind of tell you, after I've been carrying his knives for a few days, I sort of start to see him like this. Here, let me show you. Isn't that weird? It's like everything changes. I start carrying his knives around, and I sort of get in that attitude of big, beefy efficiency, strong knives with light weight. You have to man up to deploy and release the locks on. And all of a sudden, I realized, wait a minute. I'm a used car salesman and a knife nut. Maybe we're not so different after all, Lynn and me. But seriously though, guys, I've started a little testing on the Recon 1 today that I'll share with you as I show you the rest of it. I talked a lot in my review of that knife about its design and its steel and the application of its steel that make it a great folding survival knife. So I started with a little cardboard cutting test today, and I'm going to split a little bit of wood tonight, show you some of that footage, and then I will sort of meet back in the in the sharpening room and see what we got after all that. So, I'll talk to you in a little bit. Okay guys, what I'm going to do is show you the end of the cardboard cutting. What we have here is 60 or 70 cuts of corrugated cardboard. Basically represents the breaking down of about 10 medium-sized boxes. And just to show you where we are sharpness-wise, I'm going to finish this last piece before we move on to the wood. Very little effort. The hollow ground blade really slices well, even through something stiff like cardboard. Okay, now we're going to move on to batoning some kindling, which I don't normally recommend with a folding knife. but I'm kind of trying to test edge retention as well as outdoor survival capability. I'm not going to split anything big, but I am going to baton this folding knife. So hang on just a minute. Okay guys, what I have here are some pieces of, couple pieces of cypress from some pruning I did last year, and then the remains of my small green ash. Live in Indiana. It fell victim last year to the emerald ash borer, and I've had this seasoning for about a year, so let's see if we can baton through it. First we're going to do the ash using the Recon one. I'm going to go right down the middle here to start. Alright. A nice knot in the middle of this one. Right through that knot. And now let's try the cypress. I just swallowed a bug. This is kind of an interesting test. Not only are we batoning through wood, but this is a pretty old stump. There's probably some grit as we run into it. See how the edge holds up after this. And we'll do one more. It would be recommended if you have to baton with a folding knife to do it with the lock disengaged. I'm testing the lock, so we're not doing that. And we'll split one more of these cypress halves and see where we're at. Oh, there we go. Interesting. Blade's a little warm just from the friction. Got a lot of sap on it. Absolutely no deformation to the tip. And let's see what we did to the lock. If anything, guys, if you remember in my review video, if you open this knife quickly, it had a little up and down play just from bouncing off the stop pin. If anything, that's better. And no side to side. Do a visual here. I don't see any damage. Alright, I'm going to meet you back inside at the sharpening bench, and we'll clean up the blade a little bit, get the sap off it, and see what kind of sharpness we have after all that abuse. Okay gang, abuse testing over on the Cold Steel Recon 1, and as you can see, I sort of dissected the knife to see what we had, and I think I spoke too soon when I checked blade play after batoning. I did actually have a fraction more up and down blade play than I had before we started, and let me show you why. This is the lock bar. And grab a pointer. This face in the front is what meets the stop pin in the knife. And what I had was the slightest bit of peening, a line right across the face of that sort of made it catch on the stop pin and not engage all the way. What I did to fix that was sanded it on a mouse pad with some 800 grit sandpaper, and then used the the green or the gray and the green sides of my strop to put a mirror polish on it, and I sanded it until I got rid of that line. So that should engage the pin smoothly. I also stoned the other side of that tooth where it catches the blade tang, and that's never been a very precisely machined surface. I did think I noticed a little bit of burring around the edges, so I smoothed it out, and also the transition where it breaks over. As well, in the blade, I also stoned that corresponding surface, which is right here, and then also stoned and polished this breakover point, and then I went ahead and sanded and stropped that circumference where it rolls around on the bottom of the tooth and also did the bottom of the tooth. So we should have nothing but smoothness when I put this back together. What about the stop pin itself? Well, I think I did notice a bit of shininess. Let's see as I roll this around if you can make it out. Shiny spot. Maybe if I hold it this way, that's better. That area right there. Let's look 180. Well, it looks like both sides of the stop pin took a little bit of a beating, but I don't think it really affected it. I'm going to kind of run my fingernail around it. I don't really feel a flat spot. I did notice that the stop pin might be just a touch looser in the G10 than it was when we started. Well, now let's put it back together and see what we got. This is going to be fun on camera. Okay. Okay. Let's start with some clean washers. And a little bit of oil. Going to run a little oil around the G10 slab and around the pivot with my Q-tip, and install washer number 1. Running a little oil around it. Wipe off the Teflon, make sure it doesn't have any grit on it, and we'll install it over the phosphor bronze washer. Probably don't need this, but I'm gonna oil up that Teflon just a bit. Then we go to the blade, run a little oil around the inside of the pivot and on the back side of the blade, and on we go. Need a little more oil on the Q-tip. A little more oil on the blade. Another Teflon washer. A little oil on the Teflon, very little. Another phosphor bronze. And a little more oil. Now we'll, that was dumb. Remove that blade very gently. Put the lock bar on. Get it out of the way. Ooh. I have the best laid plans of mice and men. Try not to contaminate anything. Okay. And we'll put our closed stop pin in. And if I can find it, you ever have a day like this, guys? There it is. Put our locking stop pin back in. That's that. Install our scale. I'm going to install my body screws. Sure I am. There's one and two. And a pocket clip. See if I can do this without dropping a screw. Right. Look at that. Those are all together loosely. Now, let's go to the stop pin for a minute, or the pivot screw. What I like to do is remove as much of the old Loctite as I can by clamping down on the threads in a cloth and turning it backwards. And of course, you guys know, I want to be very sparing with this blue Loctite. That's way too much. Okay. Got a lot on my finger. That's good. Right, I'm in the middle of a video. Thank you. A visit from Rachel, our camera person. Now pivot screw in, freshly Loctited, and and we'll just take a guess at where this wants to be. I like to snug it and then back it off a little and see what we got. That's a little tight, but we're going to leave that like that. Tighten up the body screws in the pocket clip. Don't want to over tighten these guys. You're screwing it into aluminum. I suggest not using Loctite in the aluminum, by the way. You don't want to pull threads out when you're servicing the knife. Go around the pocket clip screws twice. It is a spring and your torque will change as you go around your pattern. Okay. Now, let's check out the pivot. I think that's about where we want it. Okay guys, knife fully assembled. I think we've got the blade adjusted about where we want it. It's almost in a drop-free condition with no side-to-side play, and our vertical play is about where we started. There is just a hint until that lock bar fully engages, and of course, even with that little microscopic bit of play as the blade bounces off the stop pin, you're in no danger of the lock failing. So I think our only casualties were a little bit of peening to the front of the lock bar and perhaps a slight bit of wallowing out of the G10. I do believe the stop pin fits a little more loosely when I assembled the knife than it did before we started. So that's that. But guys, you saw what I was doing to this folding knife, this lockback knife. You didn't see the you did not see the lock fail during batoning, and you saw a knife that was completely and totally operational when we got done. How did my blade centering end up after I took it apart? Awesome. If anything, when I polished after disassembly, the knife got smoother. You know, this is a pretty heavy spray on this Recon 1, and look after it breaks over that edge, how smoothly that blade goes into action. Awesome. What a knife. Well, there's only one thing left to check, isn't there? Let's see how it cuts. I haven't touched this except to clean it, and what I feel is still a very sharp knife. I'm going to do something we don't advise, which is run my skin along the edge to see what I can feel. I do feel a bit of grittiness, not out at the tip, but where I was doing most of the cutting. Let's see on the fingernail. Normally I can detect it on my skin before I can on my fingernail, and I feel just a little right in this area of the knife where I was batoning, and some right out here in the middle of the belly. I did notice some microscopic rolling, looking under a magnifying glass, and some pretty tiny chipping, kind of in areas where there were remnants of grind marks. Even though it was a mirror polished edge, there's still small marks in it. My polished edge doesn't look quite as good as it did. Alright, I'm going to go grab some phone book paper and let's see what we got. Okay guys, you're going to see this the first time that I see it. I don't know how good my technique will be through the camera, but phone book paper and a well-used Recon 1. And do I need to tell you what the level of sharpness was before I started? I didn't show you that test, but you should know by now how sharp AUS 8 was coming off my bench. Let's see what we got. That's pretty amazing. Little catch right there. Get some catching. Well, you know, guys, it's what it ought to be. Let me get a fresh edge here. Not what it was. Let's go out to the tip. Should be good. Well, it's not that sharp. Pretty sharp. I bet it'll cut notebook paper. Let's try. Or copier paper. No problem with that. Not a problem at all. So we're still copy paper sharp after batoning a fire's worth of kindling, making about 80 or 90 cuts through some cardboard. And I have a feeling if I keep cutting, you know, S30V, if you keep cutting paper after you dull it a little bit, sometimes it comes back. So let's cut up some more notebook paper. Now let's go back to the phone book paper once and see if we helped it at all. Well, maybe not. Well, it's not S30V, is it? Hey, there we go. You know what I'm going to do? I'm not going to touch a stone to this. I'm going to strop it, and then we're going to come back and try a fresh piece of phone book paper. See you in a bit. Okay, stropping complete. Let's come in and take a look at this edge visually. See if my mirror polish came back. Pretty much. Okay, let's see how it feels. Well, that grittiness I felt before seems to be gone. Let's try the thumbnail. Yeah, it's smooth as glass now. Let's see if I have any edge. We got the nicks out. Do we have an edge? Haha, look at that. That is pretty impressive, boys and girls. Cut a bunch of cardboard, baton a bunch of kindling, a few minutes with the strop. That Haas 8 is like new. Amazing. Amazing. Okay, guys, if Haas 8 doesn't have your respect now, I don't know what it takes. If a $65 cold steel knife doesn't have your respect, I don't know what it takes. You're just not paying attention, I guess. What a sweet little machine, huh? Now you know why I am in a cold steel state of mind. I think we're going to do something similar without beating on it about edge retention with D2. Another one of my favorite steels for taking an edge. Amazing. But let's go back to Haas 8 for a second. This steel is designed to be tough, you know, to resist chipping. It's designed to be easily sharpened to a very keen edge. It's supposed to not do too well with abrasive cutting like cardboard or rope. I gotta tell you, it's no slouch. Very, very impressive. Have you guys ordered your Recon 1s yet? If you haven't, we're going to end the video now to give you a chance. Grace to you and peace from God our Father and the Lord Jesus Christ. And remember, guys, The word is sharp. Have a good night.